unknown person over me. Jacob and I had met several times, and when she initially approached me, it seemed out of character for him because he was soft-spoken and nice. Hannah never spoke to me during family events or parties, but he was always nice to me, which I appreciated. He may be abusive, but our conversations throughout the years made him seem unusual. I wanted to trust her, but I knew she lied and manipulated to escape trouble in high school. Despite being my sister, I wouldn't trust her. And how she grew defensive when I questioned her convinced me that Jacob was right and she was lying through her teeth. I told her to go, and she did after much argument. She probably went to our mother's after departing. I heard my mother crying when she called 30 minutes later. My mother was yelling at me for trusting Jacob over her, but I told her I was fatigued and didn't want to talk about it anymore. I told her I was okay, and we haven't talked since. Jacob revealed to me 2 days earlier, after I unblocked him, that he was gathering testimony from everyone who knew them to prove that Hannah's memories were false. He was at least partially guilty. He said my endorsement would be essential because I was her sister. It would be great to speak up for him too. Though he said there was no pressure, I wanted to speak up for justice. Hannah refused to change the petition. Because my friend's father wouldn't cooperate, they hired another lawyer and asked for the same things, even saying Jacob had been abusive and led her to cheat. She said this was his fault and too convenient for her. It was frustrating, and I hated that she initially thought I was stupid. I testified against Hannah because of this. Yesterday, I felt relieved when I ultimately sided with him during mediation. I thought I did well, but my mother and Hannah were furious today. My mother called me in the morning to ask how I was feeling while testifying against my biological sister Hannah. I honestly informed her I did what I knew was right and there was no use in arguing with me now. But my mother wouldn't listen, so she kept ranting and threatening to ruin my life. She mentioned something humorous, but I'm sure she can't do it. I suggested she try. Even if she wanted, she couldn't ruin my life. She cried and said I deserved it because I damaged my sister by speaking out against her when I might have kept quiet. She seemed agitated, and I could hear Hannah yelling at my mother to hang up since I couldn't think of anyone but myself and my false sense of superiority. Hannah claimed I simply did this to satisfy my bloated ego, which I thought was a bit extreme. Why did I testify against my sister's divorce? Edit. I'm not sure why Hannah stayed with me instead of her mother, as many people have wondered. I think she was. She was honest when she said our mother gave her bad advice and told her to stay with Jacob. Maybe she wanted me at her side during the divorce. Other than that, I can't think of a reason for her to move in with me after 6 years of barely speaking. I'm sure there's a reason. She was probably here to support me during the divorce because she and my mother do things for no reason. Perhaps she wanted my financial help, and being with me would be the best way to reconcile. I don't know their intentions, but I will. The last time I spoke to my mother and Hannah was 8 days ago, following the phone. I blocked them since what they said offended me, and I didn't want to talk to them again. Most comments advised blocking them. I followed your advice. However, a few days after that phone call, I started getting hate mail from unfamiliar email addresses, so I knew it was them. They were quite specific about everything. They said I was egoistic and greedy and didn't deserve happiness. They also said my father would hate me today. I think they overstepped, but I'm not shocked. Why we're doing this is beyond me. I don't think hate mail will help them divorce. I think giving it to him, and he uses it against her to show her character, will make things worse. I was moved by the comment about my father, but their anger is clouding their judgment. After that email, I stopped ignoring them and contacted Hannah via her work email to warn her that I would make things worse for her. I meant it. She told me to unblock her if I had the courage, instead of playing cowardly. No idea why blocking was so cowardly. I don't want to talk to one. After hearing their explanation, I think it was fair. I unblocked her and called her. She said they were responsible for the message but had reasons. When I asked her why, she claimed she knew I would get irritated and seek out to her, so one talk was all she needed. Because she said that, I reportedly got a chance to apologize to her throughout the divorce. I only had to testify for her this time, alleging Jacob had compelled me to testify against her beforehand, manipulating our relationship. Her advice was amazing. She told her some men act this way. She must accept it because married spouses do. She can't give up and leave every time they struggle because that's simple. She believes trying to save the marriage is difficult but right. She should stay with him because they're married, not dating, and divorce is complicated. My mother advised her to stick with him no matter what, but she can seek marriage counseling if things grow worse. I told her she didn't have to listen to our mother because I believed that was bad advice for someone who was treated this way regularly. Discuss. I must provide her that. She predicted events accurately. However, I informed her that if she did anything with me after this, I would go to Jacob with these emails and help him prove that Hannah was crafty, manipulative, and cunning, not strong-willed. Hannah shouted at me that I would never do such things and that she would make sure I paid for them. Again, I don't think she or my mother can damage my life or make me pay for it. They don't know me well, therefore they can't criticize me. I lived a normal life, unlike them. I avoid troublemaking. I prefer honesty and a clear conscience, therefore even if they try, it won't be possible to dredge up my past. Thus, their threats don't scare me. I just wished her well, hung up while she was still talking, and blocked her again. I've decided not to unblock this woman and talk to her again. If necessary, I will meet them in person and talk, but I will not unblock them. I haven't spoken to my sister in a few days, but if you can't find dirt on someone, you can make it up. Publish online. My relatives told me my mother and Hannah had been writing slanderous things about me. Since high school, everyone had lied, so nobody could verify it. In high school, I was a jerk to Hannah because I was jealous that she was more popular than me. I would talk trash about her and try to bring her down while she was at home, but Hannah always attempted to be friends with me. They called me a villain and said terrible things I don't want to discuss because it's not worth it. However, I screenshotted those posts and saw. My blood boiled instantly. I'm unhappy that I can't sue them for defamation because it's simply their word against mine. I think I must lose something real to act against them. Until then, they lie about me online. I emailed them a warning that I had them blacklisted everywhere else and would take action if they didn't remove it. It's still up, therefore they're not scared enough. I've been talking to an attorney, and I think a formal notice will stop them. I discovered why Hannah came to me instead of her mother all those days ago. Jacob called me to say he thanked me for testifying against Hannah and said things were going well. I asked him why Hannah had come to me, and he said that even though we hadn't been on good terms for a long time, she always spoke highly of me at work. I'm not bragging, but I make more than most people my age and have a bright future. Jacob informed me she was planning to start a business, and she may have come to me to win me over during the divorce and have my support thereafter. He assumed her major motive for wanting so much divorce money was financed her lifestyle. Her former affair partner was a wealthy senior in her company who only recently discovered it. After discovering this, everything makes sense. I should have realized she wanted the money. However, things are now making sense. Unless she and my mother remove the posts immediately, I'll write them a notice and take action. I win or lose the lawsuit, validity or not. Doesn't bother me. But I'll try to get it removed. Update 3 after a week, my lawyer's legal warning was enough to take it down. Hannah presumably didn't want to risk anything else considering Jacob's divorce success. They dismantled everything. After the last update, several of you asked me what they said in those posts, which I didn't want to disclose. Anyway, they tried to make me Hannah's villain. They said I verbally abused her body and shamed her appearance throughout her life. I would never do that to anyone else because it happened to me and is rude. They probably said it since they knew I was a body acceptance advocate and it would hurt my reputation. They also claimed that I tried to hit on all of her boyfriends while we lived together because I couldn't take her getting male attention while I didn't. That hasn't altered because I'm still wooing Jacob. It's absurd. And terrible for them to say that I can't imagine someone thinking that and posting it. I'm all right because they removed most of the negative stuff about me. I wanted to fight them and teach them, so I was sorry they pulled it down so quickly. I'm glad I don't have to deal with the drama right now. Finally, I can focus on my life and move on. Both remain illegal. They will be prohibited for a while. It should be that way, and I'm sure my father would have told me the same if he were alive. Golden Child's sister, who had left me, came up and claimed her husband was cheating, so I took her in and helped her file for divorce. I later discovered she was the cheater, so I testified against her. A year ago, my younger sister Hannah, 27F, married Jacob, 30M, her companion of 2 years. My sister and I are 2 years older and were close as children, but we've grown apart. We stopped talking after I moved away for college and after we graduated and started our careers. We didn't talk much because we had quite different lives. We had a stupid fight 6 years ago and haven't since. Actual talk since. We rarely talked when our family got together for holidays and other celebrations. I don't remember what the fight was about, but it was something little. We didn't fight, we just didn't talk. After my father died last year, I barely saw my relatives. My sister and mother were close, so they had their own thing, and if I tried to visit her, I felt out of place, so I kept to myself. I didn't connect with them because I was busy at work. Additionally, 2 weeks ago, Hannah came to my house at night and asked to stay since her husband was abusive and she needed a place to stay. I kept her even though we hadn't been close in years. This seemed serious, especially for a lady and her sister. I didn't want to decline her request for help. She had come to my house with only money and her cards and apologized for surprising me, but she had no one else. I recently moved into a new apartment, so she knew Jacob couldn't locate her here and she was safe. I warned my relatives not to share my address without my permission. I didn't want her found, so I gave permission if requested. She said Jacob was manipulative from the start. After they married, she expected him to stop doubting her, but he got worse. He had her cut off her friends since he didn't like them and thought they weren't good for her. He had started encouraging her to quit her job and stay home since he believed she needed to spend more time with the family. But she had her foot down. They had fought over it for weeks. He came home intoxicated the night she fled and yelled at her about the dishes and sink. She said she was exhausted after work and hadn't done anything yet. He always argued with her, but this time he shoved her, which was the last straw. She ran to my place after he fell asleep since she had nowhere else to go. I was confused since I thought she was close to our mother and might have gone to her. Hannah told me she had discussed it with our mother. Jacob must realize this behavior was inappropriate. Even after all these years together, he would never change if he hadn't learned that. I told her I'd put her in touch with a buddy whose father is a divorce attorney and they could handle this. She filed for divorce 2 days after coming to my residence, and he was served within days. Jacob couldn't reach her since we stopped him immediately after she got at my house. She also called my mother and initially opposed leaving, but after she learned he had shoved her the night before, she felt it was too far and that she needed to leave. We urged her to block Jacob, and nobody had ties to him. I had no idea what was going on for a week, but I was anxious to help Hannah, hoping it would help us bond and grow as a family. I accidentally met Jacob at a restaurant near my workplace a week after not talking to him. For lunch, I joined him and his co-workers. I forgot his office was so close, so when I spotted him, I started to leave, but he noticed me too and ran after me as I tried to escape. But since I couldn't outrun him, and he kept screaming my name and asked me to stop so he could talk to me, I turned back and told him I'd call the police if he did anything odd. He was astonished by my response and said he wanted to discuss the divorce. I told him this was final and that Hannah would not return to him, and he looked even more confused because he claimed the divorce was his idea. My turn to be startled because that wasn't what I expected. Anyway, after talking to him, I realized Hannah lied to me and my mother was probably involved. The night he revealed problematic relationship and lying to me. I was shocked she thought I'd consider this. First, we haven't been on good terms in 6 years, and when I thought I'd be her friend and invite her into my home, she told me awful things about her husband and herself. I reminded her of these facts and said I wouldn't have testified against her if she hadn't tried to involve me. I would have avoided it and said nothing. I decided to help Jake because she lied. Everything's her fault. My location wasn't wrong. No need to apologize to her, I didn't do anything wrong. I told her she was right that those emails irritated me and that I would become angry and unblock her. Hannah abandoned her home without notifying him. He recommended divorce after realizing she was having an affair with a coworker. When he surprised her at her office after work, he saw them together and knew he couldn't stay with her. She refused his divorce proposal, resulting in a fight. She tried to reconcile and said she would end the relationship and give their marriage another chance, but Jacob wanted to leave since he didn't trust her again. He claimed to have suspected her of infidelity for a long time and had just been verified that day. He wanted to talk to her about it the next day and even offered to move out so she could live alone. He found her missing the next morning. She banned him from contacting her. He had no other means to reach her. Both our mothers and I blocked him. Since all her friends blocked him, he couldn't talk to anyone else. He received the divorce papers. Her petition demanded numerous things he didn't think she was entitled to, which shocked him. She wanted excessive settlement and alimony, and I found it odd that she felt entitled to any of it since they made about the same. She was cheating on him. Thus she was not entitled to anything from the divorce, and she should consider herself lucky that he was prepared to move out, even though he had paid the rent for the month. I have just put Hannah in touch with the attorney and didn't know the petition's terms. But I hadn't reviewed the documentation with her. I didn't worry about her since I thought she was safe. Anything. If I had seen the petition and what she wanted, I would have thought it was fine since I figured Hannah was being abused by Jacob and entitled to whatever she wanted. I changed my mind after learning the truth about Jacob. He showed me screenshots and proof after I refused to trust him. Hannah left her laptop home, which is outrageous since it gave Jacob access to all of the texts she had been suppressing from him, and I saw months and months of messages between her and her affair partner, showing Jacob's guilt. Truthful tale. I was unclear what to do after discovering the truth, so I apologized to Jacob for making him chase me and embarrassed himself. He stated he wanted to talk to me so I could tell Hannah he didn't want the divorce. He didn't want any trouble and wanted things done quickly, so it would only be fair if she changed the petition's terms. After agreeing, I asked Hannah about it at home, and she completely denied everything. Even when I told her I had seen Jacob and he had shown me all his evidence, she accused me of believing some things.